Well, hello, LinkedIn, X, Twitch, YouTube, and of course, Twitter. My name is Frank Lavinia, and you can catch me at the following URLs. Couple of things. Um, been seeing a lot of buzz lately on agentic AI, and I definitely want to read up more on it before I talk about it. But consider this an open invitation for folks who want to come on the podcast datadriven.tv and talk about it. I would love, 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 love to have you there. The other thing I want to point out is right now in sunny Las Vegas, there is a conference going on, IBM Tech Exchange. And from what I can tell from coworkers who are there, this is going to be, I think, a major part of this. Obviously, they did announce a new version of Granite being their open source LLM. But I suspect that agents are going to have an outweighed impact on the conference. That's just my gut feel. I don't have any inside knowledge of this, of what's going on. But I'm definitely going to be watching the live stream. It's supposed to go live in about 8 minutes. So I'm going to keep this stream late. We're also supposed to have a team meeting, but a good chunk of the team is actually in Las Vegas at this. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see, how do we go back here? I'm still working with the new Restream interface, but I didn't mean to turn my back on the camera. That was very rude. This book came in, Dancing with Qubits, and I've had a chance to peruse the first chapter, and it's a really good explanation of quantum computing. It's I found it very useful. I haven't really touched this field in the last year, maybe in any significant way. I kind of got to the point where I could understand what's going on mostly. Although I believe it was Richard Feynman who says, if you think you can understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. I kind of mostly understood. I could write some Qiskit code and things like that. It is definitely a different way to think. And for those wondering, hey, why are you focusing on this? When you even literally the title of the video that you're watching right now is Are Agents New AI? I'm a nerd at heart, right? I mean, check out all these monitors I have, right? But it's an interesting, and I think this is going to be tangential to AI. I think some of the innovations that we've uncovered with the quantum way of thinking about code has actually accelerated some of our algorithms in traditional AI. And I also think that actual development of quantum computing, actual honest to God quantum computers, will accelerate the development of algorithms for artificial intelligence and some of the work there. So with that in mind, turn my back again. Sorry about that. Clearly, I need another Monster Energy drink. They're not a sponsor. I just drink too much of them. I wanted to. This will be so. This is my. I got my my whiteboard working again. But as I understand it, you have a bot. Actually, I'm not going to do this now because by the time I explain it right. But look forward to this, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to convince a coworker of mine or two to live stream like straight from the floor of the conference. We'll see how that goes. Actually got a picture from there, and technically I didn't get permission to share it, but this is. I'll ask him right now. Big shout out to Christopher. But seriously, and I'm curious. Like, I want to know how real is agentic AI in the marketplace, because I've not really. I think it's going to be real, but I think it's very avant-garde right now, and I think a lot of folks are this is the typical cycle, right? Company research comes out, proposing this, company productizes it, and then customers adopt it. Now, whether or not they adopt it quickly or not, I think remains to be seen. But I think in some terms, agents have been around for a while, right? Arguably, Dingo is an agent. Dingo is the content. It's not really an agent because it's not autonomous. So I would say that would be the first kind of attribute here, right? Agents. First, we'll define agents, and I'm not sharing. Should always good to share. Agents, I think, have to have some form of autonomy, right? Plus AI. I think that is ultimately what agentic AI is going to be, right? So they have to have some kind of autonomy. They have to perform a task, right? They do, after all, have agency. And I would say 3, they have to report back to a prime main boss. I don't know. They have to report BAS, right? Because an agent always works inside of a thing on behalf of someone else. So I think that those are the 3 things. Now, you can kind of use your imagination and think, what would AI do, right? Well, AI will definitely help with the autonomy. AI will help you do linguistics. Certainly, generative AI will help you understand language processing. It'll do that. And report back to a prime. I think AI can help with that. And I also think that AI can help with the orchestration of said this. So I think that's the definition I'm going to go with for now, at least until I get the official or the weigh-in from IBM on this at in about 2 minutes. I do have permission to share that photo because he said he doesn't care. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to, rather than share that, I'm going to copy this image and I'm going to use this wonderful program that Microsoft made and paste it. So this looks like the pre-stream keynote type thing that's going on. Clearly, it looks like AI is going to be a big part of it. Looks like, can't tell, are those robots? No, those are people dressed like robots. But on the video screen, there's this. I did have this crazy idea of doing maybe like a watch party of this, but I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments if you think that's a good idea. I do respond to all the comments, particularly on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter, or X, or whatever they're calling it now. But while I think about the logistics of, big shout out to you, Christopher. I don't know if you're ever going to watch this, but big shout out to you for letting me share that photo. While I figure out the logistics of how I would share this, because I think I have to unshare my screen. Stop screen sharing. And now I'm big up on the screen again. There is the book Candice Gahuli and I wrote. And I am going to, while I work that out, I will see what it's going to take for me to share this. It's 12:59. I'm going to keep an eye on Slack just in case this meeting does show up. And I don't have any audio yet. So let's share this screen. And let me mute for one. All right, I'm going to share this screen. Let's see if this will work. I've not done this yet. Chrome.
Welcome to Tech Exchange 2024. We are really glad you're here, either if you're in person or if you're joining us at home or from your office at the live stream. We are really grateful for everybody to be here. Tech Exchange is a unique conference because it's all about you. And when I say you, You are the practitioners who use IBM software and hardware to build some of the most impressive and complex enterprise applications for multiple industries around the world. And when I say you, I really mean you. You first are our cherished IBM champions, that we are so grateful for everything you do for us. Let's hear it for the IBM champions. The IBM champions are the VIPs of this event. And as somebody said to me yesterday that they were a champion. They said they'd never been referred to as a VIP, but you guys are home. We love you so much as you love us, so thank you for everything you do. Let's hear it again for the champions.
All right, so it looks like they sounds like their version of the MVP program. I'll resume the audio.
Grateful for you as well. Thank you. Let's hear it for the use groups, client advisory boards. There's a lot of other people here too. So I think we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to say a roll. It's always interesting when you come to a conference, you don't really know who's around you. So I'll say a roll. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand and make a little noise, and we'll get a little bit of representation of who is here today. So let's hear it for the application developers. Who are the application developers? We got a few? A few. Okay. Welcome. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. What about the architects? Do we have any architects here?
All right, so in the chat,
about 30% of the room. Welcome. We are so glad that you are here.
They probably didn't show the pre-roll for
the
copyright
data
music
scientists?
reasons.
Do we have any data scientists here? All right, a few up front, a few others. Welcome. We are also glad that you are here. I know this one's going to be a big one. What about the mainframe engineers? Are you guys here? All right, all right.
Interesting note that that's the loudest crowd.
Group. We are really glad that you guys are here as well. And what about the hot topic, the job of the people who I think are the envy of many, the AI engineers? Are there any AI engineers here today? All right. I think I got about 70% of the audience. So if you're not one of those roles, we are also glad you're here. There's one other group I'd like to call out. I'm going to actually ask them to stand. That is in the front row right here. We have our Tech Exchange watsonx Hackathon finalists. Please, I'm going to ask you guys to stand up. These guys have come a long distance to be here, from Senegal, from Poland, from India. And we are really grateful that you guys are here. Tomorrow you're going to find out who's the winner, so good luck. I hope you guys
Oh, that's really cool.
Great, thank you. This is our second annual Tech Exchange Conference. And we're building off a successful last year's conference and hearing all of your feedback where you said you want more sessions, more content, more opportunities to get to know each other and to learn and bring back value for yourselves and also for your companies and for your communities. In this year's conference, we realize that you're all dealing with an accelerating speed of change. That if you are just depending on the skills that you had for the last 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, unfortunately, you are becoming obsolete. As the saying goes, AI might not replace people, but people who use AI will replace people who don't. And I think that's a reality of what we're all facing. Tech Exchange is unique because it's a technology conference for technologists. And what we're really focused on is being an antidote to that, where you all can develop skills, have some fun, and build a community with a connection to the community to bring back those relevant skills to increase and improve your own career, as well as help your companies and communities improve. Well, it's not just all about learning, and we'll cover that in a bit. It's also about having some fun. So who thought that they had a good time yesterday in the Jimmy O Yang show that was on the stage here last night? That was a lot of fun, right? Really great. As great as Jimmy was, and he was really great, I thought Graham and JoJo also did a really great job. It's nice to see them on stage.
So in case you're wondering what he's talking about, Jimmy Yang, who was from Silicon Valley,
is amazing, right? I think who's into that 80s, 90s.
He had like an opening night act.
There's been a few requests of people who said after the show if we could ship it to their basement. I'm going to ask that first, but really, if you haven't seen it, please take some time. And just other activations events. You'll see as the event unfolds, we're going to have a lot of fun. When you have fun, you signal to your brain to relax. And when your brain is relaxed, it's open to learn.
That's very
Think
true.
of joy and learning together. So let's all lean in to have some fun over the next few days. Also, while we're having fun, let's learn. So I personally love to learn by going on YouTube videos and downloading self-paced content, but for me, it's never satisfying enough. That's not how I learn. I learn by debating with live people. I learn by taking a piece of hardware and breaking it up so I could try to build it back together. I learn by taking a piece of software, trying to solve something so it actually compiled correctly. I learn by doing. And I think that's very much the spirit of Tech Exchange, is to learn by doing. So how are we going to do that? We have an app, and hopefully everybody has access to the app already. There are many sessions, thousands of sessions, 250 self-paced workshops, boot camps. There's a lot. And it's all built by some really talented people who spend a significant amount of time to make sure that you're getting the content that you're looking for. But we also scheduled in a lot of free time because we'd encourage you to spend time with each other, to make a new connection, and to maybe do something you wouldn't thought you would have done coming into the
Networking
show.
is definitely a big part of these conferences, for
There's
sure.
3 tips that I would recommend for everybody as you navigate the next few days. The first is follow your passion or choose your own adventure. In other trade shows, you kind of have to pick, or conferences, you have to pick a track and you have to stick with the track. Tech Exchange is not like that. Follow your own adventure. If you are a security person who wants to learn about infrastructure, great. If you're an infrastructure person who wants to learn about data and AI, great. If you are an infrastructure person who just wants to stay in the infrastructure track, great. Whatever it is that's interest to you, whatever your passion is, follow your passion, choose your own adventure. Number 2, the best way to navigate so much content, my recommendation is start with the track spotlight. They're going to be running throughout the day. In the track spotlight, you'll see the greatest hits and what's new product releases, new future introductions, where it'll give you really a tour of what is the key information that you should know so you don't miss anything. When you're going through that, you'll see all the different activities that are planned for the next few days. You can mark them and add them to your agenda so you don't miss a thing. That's number 2. And number 3, as I mentioned before, Tech Exchange is unique in that it's a technology conference for technologists. I would encourage everybody here to do at least 1 boot camp, maybe 2. Getting your hands into the application is a unique experience where you'll be able to return right after the Tech Exchange conference to your companies, to your communities with a skill, a real skill based on application level experiences. So take a boot camp, kind of get into that level of detail and training. In a few moments, we're going to reopen the sandbox again. I would encourage everybody to meander your way through the hallways. Meet some of the IBM champions. We already have talked about how people might come over to them and ask them, what it is that they do. Please find some time to meet with the champions, meet our cherished user groups, our partners. All of the pods have demos. I saw that you could learn how to do InstructLab in 15 minutes.
That's true.
Great. I'll be there after, but spend some time in the sandbox.
So fun fact, it was my colleague and teammate that worked on converting that, making it ready for this conference. I did it last week.
Beyond. I'm going to shortly call up to the stage a friend of mine and an amazing SVP of software development, Dinesh Nirmal, who's going to share his vision of what we're doing in generative AI. But before I go there, just one more time. Thank you all so much for being here. We are really building something important, and we are all one community. So please give yourselves a big round of applause, and thank you for coming to Tech Exchange 2024. Thank you so much.
Think scaling your AI pilots is hard? Think again. With Watson X, you can deploy AI across any environment.
Oh yeah, I saw this commercial
Above the clouds,
on the Weather Channel. I'm like, wow, I know that.
on-prem with your company's secured data, and on center court with the crowd in real time. On the edge, helping remote bank tellers in the outer reaches. And on the cutting edge, detecting storms in real time from outer space. Watson X helps you deploy AI wherever you need it, so you can take your business wherever it needs to go. IBM, let's create.
Please welcome to the stage the Senior Vice President of Products, IBM Software, Dinesh Nirmal.
So this is where I'm hoping he's going to talk about agentic AI.
Good morning, Tech Exchange. I told Ayal I'm really disappointed I didn't get to bang that drum and, come in with the goggles and looking all cool, but I'm really excited to be here. You know why? This is our second Tech Exchange, where we bring our practitioners, our developers, our sysadmins, everyone technical together. Now we have an open source track. There is no other conference, there is no other technical conference like this. And that's why, if you look at the registrations, we are up 200%. 200% up in registrations for this year. Second years in a row. Awesome. I mean, thanks to the team that organized. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm excited because this is also a place where we come and talk about the changes in enterprise and talk about changes. If you look at the last 2 years, it has been all about generative AI.
Oh yeah, here it comes.
Generative AI
Good
is
stuff, good
transforming
stuff.
the enterprises. But why? Why is every enterprise, every business out there embracing generative AI? To me, there's one reason. It's all about automation. It gives you the opportunity
This
to
is the
automate.
this is the play up for
If you're a developer,
the setup for
now
the
you
payoff
can
of
write the
agentic.
10,000 lines of code you couldn't write before using generative AI.
Right.
If you're a customer service agent, a call that used to take you 2 minutes can be done in 10 seconds because you can summarize everything that you need in front of your fingertips. That's why generative AI is being embraced by every enterprise out there, because of automation. But I'm going to start this conference with a bold statement rooted in reality, which is Gen AI will disrupt every application and every process out there that enterprise have. I have zero doubt in it. But it has to do it with leveraging existing investments. There's no way you can bring a new technology in without embracing what is already there. Think about it. 70% of world's transactions run through mainframe.
Yeah, I will
Is
say
there mainframe traffic?
IBM knows how to do enterprise software.
Can you imagine
100%.
bringing a new technology like Gen AI
Yep.
without embracing mainframe? 97% of API calls go through an API gateway, middleware. Think about it. All these need to be embraced for you to bring any new technology like generative AI. And you might be wondering who said it. Just want to make sure I get the credit. I said it. But here's the thing. Then the question becomes how? How do you utilize the existing investments? How do you take advantage of the existing investment? And this is where IBM comes in. There is no other vendor in the world who understands the existing landscape of an enterprise better than IBM. There's no other vendor. We know. We have been there with them for 100 years. So I put together a very simple diagram to explain the existing landscape. And then I'm going to talk about how do you infuse generative AI into that landscape. So you look at any enterprise landscape, any enterprise architecture. There's two things that matters to any enterprise, any business. That's one, applications, and two, data. Think about it. That's all it matters. If your applications go down, you make headlines. Your customers are going to be on social media. You are a data-driven enterprise. If your data get corrupted, your RTO, RPO, everything is out of the window. But there is a line that connects the two. which is the integrations or middleware, which is focused on API calls, which is focused on MQ, iPaaS. That is the lifeline that connects the applications and data. Now, if you look at data, right, what is that you're trying to do at data-driven enterprise? You're trying to create self-service, which is data products. You need to do ETL. You need to do the cleansing of the data. So that gives you the data products. But on the application side, if you look at it, there's an ecosystem of IT that's around applications, which is, what is the cost of running that application? What is the risk? What is the resilience? I mean, think about it. Today, every enterprise has thousands of open source packages. What is the risk associated what is the risk I'm carrying as an enterprise as I bring these packages? What is the resiliency that I have to look at? How do I resource manage it? How do I observe it? All that becomes in that IT landscape. Now, if you go to the next one, the applications connected to the line of business. And there are 5 core things for any line of business. Starts with workflow, because every enterprise needs a process. 2, process mining. 3, RPA. 4, document processing. And 5, a rules engine. That is, if you look at the line of line of business, that's the 5 things that you need. Somebody has to create those applications. That's where application developers comes in. That's where CI/CD becomes important. That's where secure pipeline becomes important.
I'd say I really like
Now,
this
you might
build
ask,
up
okay,
to
this all
agentic
makes
AI,
sense.
right? It's not going to
Where
ever
is
exist in a
generative
vacuum.
AI coming into play? I think there's 2 places. There are other areas, but 2 core areas where generative AI is playing a role. One, it's disrupting development, software development. Why? Think about it. Every enterprise wants to build new applications. They want to modernize existing applications. How can they do it faster? How can they make their developers more productive? That's one area where generative AI is disrupting. 2, line of business. They want to make sure they can enable the line of business to move faster. Those applications are connected to the line of business. How can I summarize what I need to do? That is where the second area where generative AI is disrupting. Overarching all of this is the underlying PaaS, iPaaS layer, right? And the network layer. And then obviously security comes together. This, in a nutshell, is an enterprise landscape. This is it. This is what all enterprises look like. There's some deviations here and there, but this is the picture of a landscape. Now the question becomes, how? How do I disrupt and reconstruct this environment using generative AI? Because that's what every enterprise has to do. Unless you are born in the last year or 2, you have to take that existing landscape and infuse generative AI into it. How do we do that? To me, it can be done only in the future using agents. You say, why? Why using agents? Because that is the future. That is where the world is going. Because if you look at agents, it's all about autonomous, non-deterministic, contextual, and no human in the loop. And think about every enterprise. They're aspiring to do that. They want every process to be autonomous. They want it to be non-deterministic. They want it to be contextual, and they want no human in the loop. They want lights out operations. That's why agents are the future. That's where the world is going. And then you will say, okay, well,
Now there's the
let's talk
value
about
prop.
assistants. What happened to the assistants? How do it differ from agents? It's very simple. I took my own example. I said, you know what? I'm going to Tech Exchange. This is how a conversation would look like if I would use the same thing to say, book me a flight to Tech Exchange. It will ask me what dates, where are you going, destination and origin. It is very dialogue based. It's very deterministic. Now, if I ask the same question to an agent, this is how it would look like. It will call a web search agent to figure out where Tech Exchange is happening. It will look at my calendar assistant to figure out what dates. and then it will autonomously execute the result. This is why I said agents are the future, because it's autonomous, it's non-deterministic, it's contextual, and you don't need a human in the loop. And this is every enterprise's dream. And then you're going to say, okay, how does an agent work? Agent works in 4 ways, 4 core ways. One is think. This is where perception and reasoning comes in. This is where the LLM plays a role. This is where you have to take your data and fine-tune the
Hey,
model.
Andy.
This is where the Instruct Lab,
Hey, how's it
IBM
going?
technology like
It's
Instruct
going all
Lab
right.
comes
So I
into picture
figure
because
we can
it
provide
enables you to
like running
quickly-
commentary if you wanted, if we think that's a good idea. Obviously, people in the chat will let us know if it's a terrible idea or not.
Sure.
Not going to do the whole thing, but we can kind of talk about it.
database world. When a query comes in, Optimizer has hundreds of access plans, but it picks one. It picks one access path to execute that query for the best performance. The same applies here in the plan. It goes through multiple choices and picks one course of action. And the third one is all about act. You have already picked a path, you execute it. Last but not least, the most important piece is reflect. This is where, just like a human, you have executed an action, you're going to evaluate yourself and learn from it. That's where the feedback loop comes in. And this is where the guardrails matter. The compliance, how does it work? I mean, is it hallucinating? All those things matter. The lineage, all those things, how do you monitor the models? This is where IBM also plays a huge role in the governance of those LLMs to make sure that it is enterprise ready. Now, you get why agents are critical. And there are many vendors out there calling assistant agents. But in our case, we want to show you how easy it is to build the agents. And not only it's going to be building the agents, there's going to be hundreds of agents. How do you manage them?
That's what I
How
do
you
wonder about. Like, what's the
monitor
governance
them?
model for
How
this
do
going to
you
be?
govern them?
Exactly.
I want you to see it today. You're going to see it live on how to create an
Well, the
agent,
consumption
how
is gonna
easy
be
it is to create an
distributed.
agent, and
They're
how
gonna be
easy it is to manage and govern a bunch
pushing
of
models
agents.
out
Because
to
it's real,
edges and
folks.
places where
It's
people
happening, and we are at the forefront of it,
So,
and this is real. So
Well,
for
like, and also
you to
too,
see
like,
it,
what's the
I'm
guardrails
going
going to
to
look like?
invite
If he's talking
Peksha,
You know,
Maharaj, and Bobby
hundreds of
on
anything
stage to show you live
is
how IBM
a
is
challenge
now
to
building
manage in an
agents
enterprise,
and managing and
let alone
monitoring
something
agents.
like
Please
this.
welcome Apeksha and Bobby.
an internal IBM metric I heard was that they had
Okay, Bobby.
2,000 requests
Rocket
at
Boss.
it.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Really?
Good morning, all.
Dinesh just told you that your applications and processes are not only being disrupted, but also reconstructed.
And you do not need to rebuild everything. You can use existing
I'm
investments.
going to snag that QR code.
You can make your investments intelligent by turning them into agents.
And we can manage the universe of agents using MARC.
Let's show them. I want to focus your attention on the left side of the screen, where you see Flows Engine can be used to create simple agents from your existing data and services. It can also be used to
Oh,
create
we have
meta
someone
agents
else to come and
from
help
the
us.
existing agents. And so forth and so on, we can create meta agents.
Hey,
that
Candace,
turns
welcome
all
to
the
the
way down
watch
in
party.
reverse. Now,
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
show you
I'm
how
really
to create
excited
a simple customer
be
agent
here.
from an existing backend. For the purposes of this demo, I've also pre-created.
So for those who don't know, Candace is my co-author on the book, and her family has a pretty long IBM legacy. And so I figured she'd be a good person to kind of loop into this.
That gets currency exchange from a services backend. So let's switch to the demo. So I'm going to first create a customer's agent that by importing and introspecting the backend.
You know, I never thought I'd see a day when an IBM conference would use
And
Visual
then
Studio
I'm going
Code
to enrich the schema
as part of their demo.
by adding a natural language.
Well, that just shows you how
description
pervasive
that will help
everything
the agent
is,
decide
right?
Yes.
when and how to
And how
use
more
this
amenable
backend.
IBM is
And with that,
to working with
I'll simply
other folks.
deploy the schema.
Yeah, quite a few years ago, I worked at
Now, to
IBM,
create
and
the
they
agent,
talked about
I'm
that
just
they
gonna
had more
repeat this
Java
process.
developers than Sun.
I'm going to use Flows
That's
Engine,
wild.
and I'm going to first import that schema into a Flows Engine
And
project.
they've been a big proponent
I'm going
of
to
open source
deploy
from the very
the project.
beginning,
That's true.
with their own version of Linux and their own version of support for various technologies.
And now you can see with 5 easy steps, I've created a simple agent against an existing backend.
That was pretty quick. Can you show
And
me
full
how
disclosure for those
share?
watching the stream, just
Yes.
tuning in,
I
Andy and I
can
both work
connect
for
this
Red Hat,
agent
which
to
is
a
obviously a
chat
big open
interface
source
so that
company
I can show
that
you
is now
how it
owned by
works.
IBM.
So I just asked the agent to list the details for an existing customer, John Doe. And the LLM figured out that it could use the agent to make the request to the back end to retrieve the data. But I can also ask questions that require a bit more than just retrieval. For example, I can ask the LLM to tell me how many customers I have in the United States.
But how can it possibly do that?
That's a good observation. My simple backend for this demo cannot count, but Flows Engine comes with a set of utility agents, and the LLM figured out that it could use the customer agent that I just defined to get the data and program a JSONATA agent to compute the count. So now I'm going to show you how to create a meta agent. Let's go back, and we can simply create the meta agent. If you remember, I had 3 simple agents. I had a customer agent, an orders agent, and an exchange agent. And now I'm going to create the meta agent by just simply importing all 3 of those agents into, let me get to the right screen here. I'm going to import those agents into a Flows Engine project. And again, I'm simply going to deploy the project.
I think this might be the first tech conference in a number of years where the AI wasn't the most commonly referred to word. I think it's agent.
So now
Yeah,
I can ask
That's right. That's what they are. They're
questions
talking about
such
different
as, give me
agents
the
that can
orders
Right.
of John
do
Doe and tell me
different
the cost
aspects
in
of
British pounds.
Agents,
And the
creating their
LLM
final profile.
uses the agents to
yeah, I
determine
also
how
understand,
to
and I saw
orchestrate
something
them
earlier
to
today
get
that I
the
haven't gone
desired
back and checked,
results.
that Microsoft renamed Copilot to several different agent terms.
Wow.
That would make sense. Agent is definitely, because I've been getting
Okay,
pinged a lot in the
now,
last
we're
few
not
days
only
on
solving
what's
the
your thoughts on
ability to
agentic AI? And
create
I'm like, well, I
agents,
have some,
but we're
but I don't
also
really
solving
think
a
it's
lot
going to
of the hard
be,
problems in the back end, such
you
as
know,
making it
big in the
efficient,
market. And
making
clearly
it
I'm wrong.
scalable, making it
Yeah.
secure, making sure
Not
it
big in
doesn't
the market like
hallucinate,
ever, but
and
I just
also
didn't, I
making
thought it
sure
was
that
still
the plan it
very
builds is good.
early on.
But we're
But
not stopping
apparently,
there.
I think it's going to be
Definitely.
this
We are not stopping there.
research I've done the
Soon
last
there
couple
will
of
be a
days has been
universe of agents
very
which we
clear
need to manage
it's going to
at
be a thing.
enterprise scale. Let me introduce
So
you
with all this
to
collection
Can we have
Mhm.
a
of
demo,
data
please?
to create a profile, I keep on
Mark,
thinking now
Multi-Agent
about
Resource
your sentient
Coordinator. It
profile.
not only
Right.
has a low-code
And
agent builder,
how does
it can have
that
coordination between
how does
heterogeneous
that
agents.
come out of
It can have
what they're
multiple
currently
attributes
creating now and what
and
needs to be
agents.
done to
Along with
enhance
that,
it?
it also has got a robust life
I don't
And
know.
what about privacy?
along with
The governance around this
capable
sounds like a
agents. Hey,
flipping
could
nightmare,
my agent be
Absolutely.
there?
but that's not going to stop
When you
people
go
from
about
doing it, you know.
it could be a customer
Nor
agent
should it,
and
right?
a meta agent
Well,
I think if
it's
we,
right under the custom agents
well, it's
tab.
something I noticed.
Not
I was
only
working
that,
with a
we
customer
also
that
have
was
got some
using
its own
Granite
set
to
of
build
agents like API
automation
generator,
assistants
Mhm.
communication,
for their programming
scheduler,
that was
machine
using a
chart,
mix of
voice
code from
over,
IBM and
etc.
from others.
in
And it was very
combination
interesting
with the
because,
templates with which you
of
can
course,
quickly create
their end
custom
customers
data
wanted to use
templates.
the trained
Can we
models,
go
the
back
tuned
to
models
that
of Granite,
communication agent
but they didn't want their
that
prompts to be
was there?
uploaded. So agent
Why
became kind
not?
of a
When
pseudonym
you are on
for
the move, you may
basically
even have
projecting a local
communication
copy
channels
of
going
the
for you,
LLM to
like
help
Meet,
generate
Slack,
automation,
WhatsApp, or a phone call.
because
Interesting.
This is where
nobody
the
wanted their
collaboration engine
prompts
comes
from the
very
local
well. Let me
customer
show you
to
this
be,
in Slack.
replicated up through a hosted service
Over
or a
here, I
hosted
will
API
minimize
driven
my
model.
Slack
So
to be
Right.
a
that's where I
friendly
think this is
customer
coming from. I
experience.
actually just sent
Like
you the
notify
article on
me
agentic AI that
when
IBM
any
posted
particular
just a few
order
Oh,
days
number
ago.
is
cool.
received.
But that's what I'm seeing in the customer use case is a hosted model means everybody's data is being sent all over, plus your intellectual property is being delivered. But if you tune a model and then package it up and deliver it as a local application, and then call that an agent, for example, that makes sense.
Scheduling from the notification agent or the scheduler agent, processing the PO using the PO agent, and communicating with me.
PO has been received in 2002.
So I put the article you referred to in the QR code right over there.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
You saw with Mark, we can
Oh, I
bring
think that's the one I
multiple
just sent you.
agents together,
That's the one you just sent me, yeah.
which they can bid and
There's a
perform
video too.
complex tasks.
Nice.
And not only
Surprised
this,
the IBM
but
videos
do a
are,
time-sensitive
some of those
task
IBM videos
to
are actually
Mark
great.
and to the agent.
They're really good.
While you are doing your own stuff, lot of tasks at your end, you know Mark is on top of it to complete your task.
That's really exciting. So now you've learned how to make your investments intelligent by turning them into agents, to combine those agents into meta agents that can then be used to reconstruct your applications and processes.
And we can manage them at enterprise scale with governance and lifecycle management using Mark. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Interesting. So Mark is going to be the governance engine. That's was the thing Candace and I were talking about. I don't know if it goes into the sentient kind of profiling like you were, where your head is at. When you write a book with somebody, you kind of have a psychic link with them. So you kind of know what they think.
Right, because you know what I'm working on in the back of my mind.
Right.
Right.
With two practitioners, one Holly Cummins from Red Hat.
Nice. Shout out to Red Hat.
I mean, think about it. Meta is playing a huge role in the generative AI side with Llama models. From an open source perspective, Red Hat is playing a huge role with RHEL AI. So I want to welcome both of them to come on stage.
Yeah, they mentioned your product.
Nice. They did earlier too. They were encouraging people to go to the Instruct Lab that my team worked on.
More productive in their enterprises. So please welcome Holly and Joe. Hey Holly, how are you?
Hello.
Hey Joe. That was a pretty hard handshake.
So it looks like it's going to be like a fireside chat.
I was wearing a blue shirt. I saw Holly and Joe both wearing black, and I said, well, I'm going to go back and match them. I got to look cool too. So
There was a dress code.
it looks good, right?
You got the white shoes though. Forgot those.
Yeah. So Joe, let me start with you. Like I said, Meta is playing a huge role in the whole generative AI, which is, you know, I mean, credit to you all because amazing work with Llama. And we also announced the Generative AI Alliance Group.
Yep.
What was your thought process behind the Alliance Group, and how do you think it's working out?
Yeah, I guess for history, I've spent about the last decade of my career in AI. It was called deep learning, I guess, back then, and machine learning. And I've had the privilege of working on projects like Caffe and Onyx and PyTorch, and now most recently Llama. And you know, I think one of the things Meta has been, obviously in Facebook historically has been heavily involved in open source. We've open sourced 1,000 projects, I think overall now. PyTorch has been one of our key projects. And I think we've been telling the story of open source and kind of building this community. And
This is going to be one of the biggest turnarounds in like corporate history and technology.
I think dramatically.
Facebook's embracing
Essentially a research
embrace of open source.
Now everyone's involved. I talk with more policy folks.
Yeah.
more
Oh,
leaders,
yeah.
You know,
It you know,
government,
for them
enterprises
to
involved,
open up
is touching the consumer.
their doors in any way is
And so I think
really
the time was right last year for us to come together and bring together.
Trans-
It's almost as radical as when Microsoft
My
embraced
personal
open
view
source.
is
Mhm.
especially areas like trust and safety, where we don't want.
I've worked with Meta before, and they're not easy that way.
And that's where we have over 100
No, they don't have a history of
academia,
Closed systems, yeah.
enterprise,
Yeah.
companies like Meta and IBM, startups. I mean,
But you know me, I love IBM.
different unique
So
That's true.
And bringing those folks together and being able to really tell the story of open AI and open science is really important.
Which is very true. I mean, it's a really good job. I mean, especially when you talk about the
I
democratization.
worked at IBM early in my career, and I actually ran Linux
doing
Oh.
generative AI.
They had
Interesting.
quite a few years ago. I ran Mandrake Linux, and there were internal articles about how to port everything. Believe it or not, QuickTime and Lotus Notes ran on Mandrake.
Moving
Wow.
forward, which is a great organization that we have put forward. Holly, I know we prepared.
Yeah, the IBM Watson X transition and a lot of the embracing of open source technologies and integrating them in. The thing that was a little surprising to me, and I didn't dig into the details on it, but earlier they announced Developer Hub integration with Watson X.
Interesting.
They're definitely understanding that. In my interactions with customers, I hear this constantly, which is everything's about the AI model, but not about the application that has to be packaged up and delivered before you can consume the model at an enterprise scale. So
Right, that's not the cool part of the project.
So everybody goes on and on about the model, but you have this last mile problem of how do I generate an application that can be consumed.
And in Red Hat, I've focused mostly on open source. I think it's really important to acknowledge how much.
So she's from the Quarkus business unit, if memory serves.
It's such a fantastic collaboration vehicle, and it's such a fantastic multiplier. And so we see this historically with just learning from the code that other people have produced and being able to then bring that into our own projects by seeing the best practices. And now, again, that's sort of amplified with the productivity tools that we see based on generative AI. So instead of me having to go copy and paste from someone else's work on the internet, that is streamlined, that's made more autonomous, which is ideal in terms of productivity.
I would also imagine security too, that helps.
Well, that's what we talked about, right? You know,
Yeah.
everything that we're talking about for the future, marketing, data-driven decision making, it all has to have governance. You know, it has to have the security element, the privacy element, or it's just going to run wild. And it can't, but because we're aware of it and because we know it needs to happen, there really isn't that much excuse for it not to happen. We just have to kind of, people need to get organized and decide on, you know, some common best practices. And I think we're all smart enough to do it.
Right.
For that, the first piece is we want to look at the model side. And again, it's all about the democratization. So on the model, I want to use probably a small model for cost reasons, but I want it to be a more capable model. How do I do that? So something like InstructLab can
Nice call out for InstructLab.
to me as well, even though I'm not a data scientist. And then the next piece is how do I consume the models? And so there we're seeing things like just this week, I think we've announced that we've got models available on Docker Hub and on KDIO.
That was your point, Andy.
You can pull it in a really frictionless way without having to understand the sort of the complexity of the model serving. And then the last piece is, okay, but as a developer, how do I code against this model? And this is where stuff like LangChain helps. For me, I'm in the Java world, so we're looking at LangChain for J, and we've got really nice Quarkus integrations for LangChain for J. So it's how do I use these tools, integrate them into my application, because ultimately it's an integration problem, taking the existing capability, making it reconfigured in a new way to solve new problems more quickly.
That's an interesting point, right? Because all the glamour is in the LLM side, not necessarily the integration side.
Versus smaller models. I mean, cost also plays a role into it. How do you make sure that as you do the model tuning and model prompt engineering, all those things, how do you make sure that you bring a level of quality even if it's a smaller model? And we just announced our Granite 3.0. I mean, you know, when it comes to time series, we are much better than models that's 10 times bigger.
Yep.
So, I mean, and 97% cost effective. So, I mean, you know, every enterprise is looking at it, which is a great, but from your perspective, how do you look at that and say, you know, small versus big, and that's something enterprises always brings to the forefront?
Yeah, I don't think it's really a choice, actually. I think there's, there's a lot of interplay. I mean, as Holly mentioned, I think there, you know, when we, so I guess I've been kind of like the champion of small models at Meta, and we've deployed these things at Connect just a few weeks ago, or I guess last month. We had models running on our headsets, and we showed off Orion and some of our kind of leading edge, you know, mixed reality hardware. You know, we can have paradigms where you have a large model call a small model. In the case of like safety, for example, you can call a safety classifier, and you know, you think about prompt injection attacks. Like you can actually have outside models that can move much faster than the larger model. And then you can also have, you know, a small model call a large model in kind of the opposite case, where you might have, for example, a small model sitting on your phone. If it has a complex query, it might, query the cloud to a larger model like a 405B or a 4.0 type class model. And that model locally can be doing things like prompt rewriting. It can
That's
be
an
summarizing,
interesting. That's an interesting
things like
workflow, right?
generating
The little models
responses,
calling
like
the big models
my
for
last
more
10
assistance.
messages on my, that someone sent
I
me,
wonder if that
someone said
qualifies
generate
as, agentic.
2 candidate responses. Like, what would that look like? And that model can do that pretty locally. I think the challenge
Brian,
with
can
small
you
models
explain
is,
yourself a little bit more?
we
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
if I know what
thought,
agentic
through
means,
some of
actually.
the cases
So
that targeted those
you missed the first part of this, but basically it's the idea that AI, agentic AI, are little bits of artificial intelligence that are running, and they can all kind of work together.
Okay.
And that's kind of what the overarching theme I think of this keynote is about agentic AI. And it's really the only time at a tech conference that in the last few years where AI was not the most often used terms. Agent this, agent that, and I really think that we're on the cusp of something big with that.
Okay.
She has a point, and that paradigm, that pattern goes back to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, the old centralizing, distributing process.
Exactly.
But what I'm intrigued by is, generative AI gives us the ability to kind of package up all of the analytics potential of a data center into a model that we publish out to edges where it can, interact with users where information is most needed. But
absolutely,
it combined with, the cloud centralization. I read a statistic recently that 67% of training will happen in the cloud, but consumption is going to be massively distributed.
That makes sense because the resources to pull off this, like, they're phenomenal to train these models. Even with InstructLab, it's still considerable. That's hard to predict this field more than 6 months out.
Yep. Did we lose sound on their presentation?
Yeah, I can't hear anything right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Oh, I muted it.
I think we're
My
going to
bad.
enter an era where AI starts to become
Again, folks, if you're just tuning in, this is an experiment. I was live streaming a meeting I was expecting to do. It would end the live stream, didn't happen. This was on my calendar too to watch this, and I'm like, why don't I stream this while I'm doing this and have like a watch party, right?
And I think you upgrade the kernel and it adds things like vision.
Never did this before, so.
We got to jump in just a second.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you joining, and I got to jump in a little bit too.
And we want them to also be much more open and much more like we want the community to be able to contribute new features, new capabilities, and InstructLab, I think, is a great example of
another call out for
that.
InstructLab.
And so I think, for me, I think 2 years from now, we're not going to be talking about the models as much. I think we're going to be talking about really an operating system and building and accelerating developers building applications. Because ultimately, we want to bring value. We want to create amazing experiences for enterprises, for users. And I think the model becomes a little bit of a lesser concern and more of the system and the operating system itself that we're building on. Like, do I think about, the Linux kernel? Do I think about Linux actually these days? Not that much. I kind of build on a higher level of abstraction, and it kind of fuels, like, basically it fuels innovation because we're less worried about the lower levels of the stack, right? So that's kind of my take.
No, I think I'm really excited about it. Exactly what you said, right? I mean, it becomes autonomous, and models becomes the brain to become an execution engine, which I think is the agents. And that's why there's so much focus on agents, and that's why we ourselves are very much focused on the agents. Holly, any final closing thoughts?
Yeah, just to agree about the agents, I think for a while, interacting with the conversational interface and then copying and pasting the answer somewhere else, that was kind of fun, but the novelty of that has worn off, and now it needs to be integrated into our workflows.
Well, I mean, so thank you, Joe, and thank you, Holly, and I want to give a big round of applause to Joe and Holly. Joe from... This is Joe's first Tech Exchange, and his comment to me was, Dinesh, what a great conference. I mean, a lot of energy, and thanks to all the organizers. I cannot thank them enough. I mean, what a great conference. But
so this is probably why the
next
internal sales conference
for us to get
is no longer called Tech Exchange.
Yeah.
Just because they use it for this now.
I was in Vegas doing a session for a company, and some of my IBM friends pinged me and said, "Hey, do you want to go to our concert?" And I said, "No." It was Andy Graham, which had been at a previous conference. But it was really, really funny because I'm like, "Oh, well, like, how long have you been in Vegas?" They're like, 10 days. And I'm
wow.
Like, what? And they did their customer conference for the first 5, did like a day of the weekend, and then they started the technical conference internally right afterwards.
Wow.
So all kinds of people had to be in Vegas for 10 days. And I'm like, yeah, that's not happening.
No, after 72 hours, Vegas gets old real fast. So thanks for joining. I know we all got to drop. This was an experiment. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Joining me is Andy Grimes, who's a fellow Red Hatter, and Candice Gahuli, who is an excellent marketer and helped me. I really helped her co-write the book. And we got another couple of books, projects kind of in the hopper too. But the reason I wanted her here is because I think she's a good, get her head on like where does the business value of AI meet, and she actually has a pretty big family legacy of IBM. So with that, I think we're going to end the stream. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Candice, for joining short notice. This was completely, like most Frank's World live streams, completely ad hoc. And let us know what you think in the comments below. And should we do more of these kind of live watch parties? Thanks for tuning in, and catch you later.
Okay.